it's the same guy, but he's called different things in both countries. Hey guys, welcome back to another Girl Gone London episode. I don't know what I was gonna say. Welcome back. My name is Kaylin. I'm a dual American and UK citizen, and today we're doing another unique differences between the UK and the US. You love these videos, I love these videos, so let's jump right in to these less talked about differences between the USA and the UK. And very quickly, before we get too far into the video, please hit like, hit subscribe, hit all those things below this video because it helps me out. That's bait. There's not much in it for you. It's mostly for me. You will get to see the content and feel happy knowing that you've helped me out. Right, difference number one. Typically, again, people are like, you can't generalize the whole of America and the whole of the UK. I know. There are regional differences, and these things aren't always strictly true, but these videos are all about generalizing. So if you're on board with that, stay tuned. If not, click off now. So the first thing is, in the UK, typically everybody knows what hay fever is, and this really refers to seasonal allergies. Seasonal allergies, or just allergies, is typically what Americans would call hay fever. So if you see ads of medicine to cure your seasonal allergies, you're probably watching an American commercial, and if it's about hay fever, you're probably watching a UK commercial. I'm not saying they don't use allergies in the UK or talk about hay fever at all in the US, but I will say growing up in the US, I'm pretty sure I never heard the word hay fever, and it was only when I moved to the UK, when everybody started talking about hay fever, that I had to translate in my head and figure out what they were talking about. And that word seasonal is pretty important when it comes to separating the two. So yes, there are other allergies that you can have, food allergies, pet allergies, whatever. So Americans would say seasonal allergies if they're referring to the grass, the pollen, and the trees when they come out, very similar to what Brits mean when they are talking about their hay fever. It is reacting to the environment and the pollen in the air. Now, the next difference that you might notice if you've seen any British or American movies or TV shows is the license plate situation. So, in the UK, you're required to have your license plate in the back and in the front of the car. In the US, in most states, definitely in Florida, you are only required to have a license plate in the back of the car. That is a big difference and something that you immediately notice when you go to Europe or to the UK. As an American, you start seeing the license plate visible from both sides of the car, whereas I'm just used to looking for a license plate in the back. I think having it on both the back and the front makes more sense, because what if somebody hits you from the front and then tries to go away? You couldn't get their license plate if it's only in the back. So I do appreciate that about the UK, and it's one of those very small differences that no one ever talks about, but it's very apparent when you go from one country to the other. Now, the next thing on my list, I need my British audience to weigh in on, because I get the general impression that, first of all, malls. We could do a whole video on malls in the UK versus the US. But even within a mall, a food court is a much more American concept, it seems. And I know that you can go to a Westfields in the UK, and there are lots of restaurants and there are different fast food places, but they're typically either going to be more sit down restaurants, or if they're not necessarily going to be located all in one place, usually. In the US, you walk into any indoor mall and we're all about the food court, which is essentially a bunch of fast food places in kind of a semicircle, but usually in more of a square formation, with a bunch of seating in the middle. If you've seen Stranger Things on Netflix, they do the whole season 3, they're in a mall and you see the food court and all of that. So you would get your food from McDonald's, but it's just simply a front there's no seating. You order and then you go sit in the food court where somebody next to you could have just gone to the Burger King or to wherever. Like I said, this is my general impression from shopping in the UK and shopping in the US. So I'm very interested for my British audience. Do you agree with me? Are food courts something that looks like this? Is that more of an American thing? Or are you like, no, we have those in my local shopping center? Because I don't think that they're quite the same, even though there are places to eat and drink in British shopping malls and shopping complexes. Now, the next thing on my list I think is a cute one, and I was reminded of it the other day when I was in London with a friend. Shout out if you're watching this. And we saw a book in the UK that said, "Where's Wally?" So where's Wally? If you're British, you'll be like, yeah, where's Wally? You're finding this man among all the other people, and it's like a book that you might get for the kids, and you're trying to spot Wally. What's the problem? There is no problem, but there is a difference, because in the US, we call it Where's Waldo? So if you're looking for a Where's Wally in the US, they might catch on to what you mean, but you're definitely going to want to say, where's Waldo? Where's Wally is something that we haven't heard of. We've always called him Waldo as far as I can remember, and it's the same guy, but he's called different things in both countries. Now, the next thing on my list is another one. You're going to need to leave your comments below on what you call it, because I think, based on my experiences, that the place where you store your food in the kitchen in the UK is usually just called the cupboard. You store the food in the cupboard. You put it away in the cupboard. Even if you have a large cupboard, it's still a cupboard. In the US, we typically say pantry. Now, I'm sure pantry has a very specific meaning, but we've all just call it, it's where the food goes in the kitchen. Oftentimes it's walk-in, but I feel like even if you put food in the US in just like a big cupboard, it's still called pantry. It doesn't have to be walk-in based on the general usage. The term pantry is a word I've not really heard in the UK. And the other difference has to do with where we store our clothes. So in the US, the word wardrobe sounds kind of old-fashioned and isn't used a ton. We would say put your clothes in the closet. I feel like the word closet is less used in the UK and more people use the word wardrobe, but you can have a freestanding wardrobe in the UK. It's more common to have like a built-in wardrobe. So it's not technically a closet, but I just think the general usage for where you put your clothes often in the US is in the closet or in the walk-in closet if you have a big house. And in the UK, it typically tends to be called a wardrobe. So that's another one of those where that can be regional. So comment below, what do you call where you put your clothes? Why do you call it that? And what do you call where you put your food? And why do you call it that? The next thing on my list has to do with an interest/hobby, and that is Formula One. Formula One racing does seem to be getting slightly more interest in the US. However, it's not very popular. In the UK, however, it is incredibly popular. If you're not familiar with Formula One, here's an example of a Formula One car. On the flip side, NASCAR racing is incredibly popular in the US, and this is a picture of a NASCAR car. In the UK, NASCAR, not popular at all. So the different types of car racing that are popular in each country was really fascinating to me when I moved here. I grew up watching my dad watch NASCAR, had never heard of Formula One, but here everybody's interested in the Formula One races, and they will have heard of NASCAR racing typically, but you're not usually going to find NASCAR fans or people who are keeping up with the latest in NASCAR. Whereas if you go to the US, Formula One might get you crickets, but the latest NASCAR race might get you a conversation. The next thing on my list, lived here 10 years, just discovered this. Apparently, in the UK, the word lasso is pronounced lasso. I don't know where the inflection goes, whether it's lasso or lasso, but it ends in an oo sound. This was evident to me when we were watching an episode of something the other day, and my husband said he's going to lasso him. And I said, he's going to what? And he said he's going to lasso him. And I was like, what are you talking about? Do you mean lasso? And he was like, no, lasso. Looked it up. Americans say lasso. British people, I guess, say lasso or lasso. I don't exactly know the inflection, but it ends in an oo as opposed to a lasso. I don't know where the word originated. I think of like cowboys and lassos. I think lasso sounds a bit I think lasso sound. I typically don't take sides on these British differences videos. I'm gonna get a ton of comments from people being like, you hate England, you hate the UK. On this one, I'm gonna go with lasso sounds a lot more correct to me because it's like you're on an adventure, you're a cowboy, you're gonna like lasso something. Lasso just has this impact to it that I don't think lasso does. But anyway, there's the difference. Genuinely did not know this. 10 years living here. These are what these videos are for, all these tiny things. And the final thing on my list is another language difference, and this is is heard a lot now because of all of the vaccines people have been getting. So in the US, we say shot as opposed to jab. So it is the same thing, your vaccine. In the UK, the campaign was get your jabs, and in the US, the campaign was make sure to get your shots or get your vaccines. Both countries say that, but the Brits don't typically say shot, they say jab, and Americans do not say jab in that context. They say get your shot. Now that brings me to the end of this video. Comment below, leave me your feedback. What do you think I got right? What do you disagree with based on your experiences? I love all the stuff I learn in the comments. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.